Right, okay, so welcome to Restart Sailing show number 17. I'm Simon Lovesey and joined by John Emmett.
Thank you very much. It's amazing. It's going to be show 20 before we know it. It's a bit
Yeah, yeah,
scary.
yeah. And we're still really in our three stages, aren't we? Bit of a yo-yo, I think. We've had a lockdown, we've had two lockdowns. We're now in some sort of restrictions, aren't we? It's going to all change next week, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's why it's so useful just to keep reviewing things. I mean, back in June we had the second wave in Japan, so nobody went off to practice for Olympics, and ever since then it's been a really really strange year. And I think we need to keep on looking at the latest updates because things can change very quickly. And I just have to say quickly before we get on in the main show, I was absolutely delighted that the Dacia Flyer went ahead because I think it was one of those things that wasn't sure, and yeah, it's fantastic that it
Yeah,
happened.
yeah, well, we'll go to that in a minute, but yeah, lot of hard work, but a lot of happy sailors. There's been lot of interviews that have gone out and things like that. But important to keep these things going. So yeah, let's come back to that in a minute. So yeah, the Restart Sailing group's been very busy again. I think it seems to sort of flare up every other day. I think, doesn't it, as some announcement comes?
Yeah, I just think it's when there's some new news item. I mean, in terms of the UK COVID situation, we seem to be around 20,000 infections a day, around 500 deaths. It's not sort of going up or not going down, and it's more sort of a regional thing now, I guess. What's actually happening in your local area?
Yeah, well, that's right. And the tiers will change next week, I think. And sounds like talk about some of London going into tier three, I think.
Yeah, well, I think it's good just to prepare for the worst, but hope for the best. And I've done that in some of my coaching slides coming up. And
Yeah.
also we've got Jamie on today, which should be fantastic from the 420 class. But just to thank Doug very much for coming on last week. I did say I would wear the solo T-shirt. I didn't actually tell him when.
Okay.
So
You have got
just
to.
just to prove it, I did.
Okay. Oh,
Technology just for Doug. I don't have any 420 clothing because I started sailing far too late.
right.
But
Okay.
thanks very much for him coming on.
Yeah. Good. Good. Good that you're making good use of the clothing, John, and saves the washing, I guess. Right. So we're back into three tiers, aren't we? So tier one was the medium alert. Not many people in tier one, I don't think. I think it's the Isle of Wight and Cornwall at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's sort of slightly upsetting for those people when they hear other people want to come over to have lunch, or or they're
yes.
probably quite happy being left alone in their relatively safe state.
I think there's been a steady flow of boats out of the Hamble heading to Cowes, but we won't talk about
Yes.
that. But most of us are in tier two, aren't we? Which sort of interesting from a sailing point of view means we can go sailing and everything. It's just a bit of travelling is less, and then tier three. But the fundamental thing is that outdoor activity has been encouraged, and I think that's good progress,
I
isn't
think
it?
it's recognised that sport is an important part for well-being, both physical and mental. It's just this hard thing with necessary travel, so to speak. So it's a good time to sail out of your local sailing club if you can now.
Yeah, yeah, and by all accounts, sailing is booming. I think numbers are flourishing at a local level. And, the challenge now, I think, will be to find the ways of sustaining that when things start to go back to some sort of normality sometime in the future. But people, I think, are refinding sailing, aren't they?
Yeah, although I mean, I don't even really know what the word normal means, but I think we're a long way off that. I mean, my ETA for things to start feeling more normal will be something like April. If you think the vaccine is a silver bullet, it's actually a really, really good thing, but it's not going to change everything
Yes.
overnight either. It's somewhere
It's
in the middle.
it's going to take a long time, and even they found, getting the first phase out is slow, isn't it? And a few side effects to take into account. And
Well, I think unfortunately a lot of news these days is put with a sort of trying to think of the word like the clickbait. It's got a tagline to
yeah, well,
invoke
it's yeah,
response
it's
because
slogans, isn't it? Yeah.
always have some a small number of people always have adverse reaction to a
Yeah,
small
and it's
number of things.
actually it allows them to refine the process, doesn't it? They can now adapt to it, and
Yeah, this idea of half a dose initially and a 21-day period before the second dose. That's a big thing in terms of efficiency compared to just the single dose. And I'm sure, the rollout will come, and the way it's been done to me seems incredibly sensible, which basically the most vulnerable people in society and those who come into contact with the most vulnerable people get it first. So it's really hard to argue against that.
Yeah, but I think we need to be realistic. It's going to take a long time to vaccinate the whole world, isn't it?
Yeah, and in the meantime, I'm getting relatively used to wearing a mask.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the reality. For a lot of next year, it's still going to be social distancing. It's still going to be taking precautions, wearing masks and things like that. So just the vaccine will help, but it's not going to help instantly. I think we just need to recognise that. Right. So it was good to see quite a lot of open meetings going on last weekend. We've got some people joining the call there, John.
Yeah, that's just to prove it is a live show. Yeah.
Okay, so I think we had the 29ers down at Weymouth, and there's a few other events going on at Weymouth. I think Ian Walker was saying actually a few hundred at there. We had the Payton Cracker going on at Payton, and the Datchet Flyer. So I think probably quite a few hundred people getting out there, all COVID secure, all making sure they weren't coming from tier 3 and things like that. But good to see a few open meetings going back.
Exactly. So is now a good time to bring in Jamie?
Well, I was just going to quickly do a bit of the Datchet Flyer.
Datchet Flyer.
Yeah, we talked about that. So managed to get the Selden Seljuice Winter Series off the ground. Been sort of quite a lot of effort going between a lot of us to get that happen, so it was a relief to get there. We had something like record turnout, basically 134 boats, which is many more than we've ever seen for a long time, and that was great to see. And
the splitting over 2 days is one of the things that helped achieve that.
Well, that's right. We couldn't fit them all in. So what happened was it split over double-handers on one day and single-handers on another, which basically allowed Datchet to sort of spread the numbers. And when you arrived, they basically directed you to one side of the shore or to another. So lots of social distancing going on. Everything was done sort of remotely in terms of registered online, changed your sail number online, no registration. You literally just picked up your tracker to say you were there. So minimising all the sort of normal contact points that you'd get at a big event. Things like scoring queries, protests were all submitted remotely. We've even got a protest probably going on now between a 420 sailor, Jamie might know about this one, and an Osprey. So all happening online, away from it. But again, it's been great to push the technology. And what's been fantastic was that things like having the briefing online makes a massive difference. It sort of makes the day so much more efficient. You're not hanging around for a briefing. It's all done on the Friday.
From a coach's point of view, it's definitely a good thing because you can. It's easier to ask questions online a lot of the time.
Well, that's right, and I think we probably had more questions because it's online. Because people are often scared to put their hand up, aren't they, in a big briefing? Whereas people can just go on the chat box and Zoom or send an email in. So we were able to deal with those. So I think user sort of satisfaction is much higher. And then we had the prize giving online, which has already seen 3,000 views. Amazing, And, again, that allows us to relive it, play the videos and things like that, things that we can't do on a normal prize giving. So I think the experience improves to a certain extent, although great to have a real prize giving, but I think lots of things to learn. So yeah, great to get that event off the ground. And we got the Burfield Brass Monkey coming up. So at the end of the year, so that's the next one to look for. We'll be opening entry for that on the 17th.
So that's straight after the new the news comes out regarding tiers, yeah. That's
right. So we don't want to announce it now because we don't know what the situation will be. Hopefully, Burfield will be in tier 2, but we don't know if we'll be surrounded by tier 3s. We had a similar situation with Datchet, which is on the edge of Slough in a tier 3, but they're over the motorway. Not many people live there. Not many people sleep on water these days. So it's sort of naturally as a tier 2, but we never know what's going to happen. So we need to wait till the last minute and then announce it. But the process is working well. People pre-register. We know who wants to come. We literally send them an invite on the day after.
And that's going to be a one-day event, everybody together. Is that
that's
correct?
A one-day event, everyone together. Slightly unusual format. We'll have a pursuit race first. The reason then, that allows us to stagger the sort of launching. So basically you probably have like a 45-minute launch window. That was one of the issues at that ship. Even with spreading people out, launching took a bit of time, but not that long. But so Burfield, it'll be a pursuit, so you'll launch sort of in order of your start effectively, so that could give us a 45-minute window. Then
I need to find a faster boat so I can get there later.
Well, that's right, there'll be a lot of call for that. And then basically into average laps, so that will again stagger the finish to a certain extent. I mean, not everyone finishes at the same time, even on average laps, so the idea is the shore side stuff is staggered. Literally you come, change, pick up your tracker, go on the water when it's your turn, race, come back in, go home. It's sort of it works actually. It's not okay. The atmosphere is not as good as it may be with a full-on event where you hang around, but it's still people still have a chance to chat.
It's really good just to be having some competition.
Well, I think that's the massive feedback. Is it real competition and a lot of classes. I think the 420s, Jamie can tell us in a minute, didn't have a nationals, so. A lot of people have not done any big events this year. There's only been a few. I mean, I know the Lasers got away with it, but very few nationals this year, wasn't there?
Yeah, I mean, we were very lucky to have our Worlds in Australia just before everything closed down.
Yeah. So the Dutch Flyer was the first major championship for a lot of people. So I think we need to remember that, and that's why we need to really keep ploughing ahead with these events where possible. Okay, so I think moving on, we're going to bring in Jamie, I think. Let's see if
he's always the interesting technology bit. I can see him. Can everyone else? There he is.
There he is. So welcome, Jamie. Okay.
So first of all, could you just introduce yourself? Because the idea is that each show we get people on from different classes. So not only to know about the athlete, but also about the class. And I guess 420 is very much a transitional class. And then we can come on to your lockdown bit.
Yeah, so I started sailing around quite early at the age of 6 and just in my local club at Cardiff Bay. Did Oppies for about 8 years or so until I was about 14. Decided I'd have enough and decided to move into a 420.
Something which planes upwind.
Yeah, well, I was just, when you're sitting in an Oppie and you see all the other youth classes flying past you.
I've got to be honest, I actually started at 16 in a laser standard rig, but that's a very boring story. I wish I started as a nipper.
Yeah, and then I've sort of been in the 420s for, I think, probably coming up, just gone 3 years, I think. And that sort of takes us to now.
Excellent.
And what was your situation in regards to lockdown? Because it's a strange situation that different countries within the UK had different situations.
So you're still in Wales, are you, Jamie? Then I guess.
Yeah, I'm based down in Cardiff.
Okay.
So it was at the start. It was quite similar for everyone. So we were the same case as pretty much everyone else, where we were going about our normal lives, and then suddenly Boris came on and. We were locked down just suddenly like that, and I remember the first night of lockdown where he'd just announced it. I'd been sailing down in Cardiff Bay with my crew, Will, and it was like a mad sort of operation to quickly nip down to the club and get the boat before it got stuck there for however many months, and it was just trying to pack it up in the dark quickly before it was out there.
I can relate to that. I did a pack up in the dark with a boat, and then I did a podcast interview completely in the dark, which was one of the strangest things ever.
That was one of the interesting things to come out of the Dutch Flyer entries. We had about 20 people who wanted to come, but their boats were still locked down after the last lockdown. So I think actually a lot of people have fallen foul or fallen to that in terms of the boats being locked away and not being able to get there.
What's been your regatta situation this year? Because there was a lot of stuff that was on again and off again and on again, and I must admit I sort of lost track.
Yeah, I feel like I did as well. Sort of, yeah. So we were lucky enough, a few of us, to I think it was really early August. We managed to get out of the country and go to France for a little. It's an event they put on every year, called the Challenge Cornu Cup or something. And I think, there were about 5 British 420s that made it across. But it was quite a big
And
event.
presumably made it back as well. just to clarify.
Well, yeah, the whole time we were, I think maybe Spain had just gone into 2-week quarantine. So we were just checking our phones all the time, just seeing if we were safe. And then maybe, I think it was about a week later, they brought in the rules for France. We were quite lucky in that respect. But yeah, a few of the British 470s went over as well. So there's a few Olympians there. So it was quite a little cool event just to get just something different as to what we were used to.
Just a top tip for people at home: you can actually subscribe to the Gov emails, and they email you every single change of travel restrictions due to COVID. And normally you'll get, for example, an email on a Thursday that will come into effect on a Monday morning. So you do have the chance to do a rapid pack up and leave where you're going if things are about to change. So I think at the height I probably have 3 or 4 emails a day from that, and that's a really useful tool.
Yeah, and then we had the only British event we've had was our Autumn Champs down in Brixham, which was really well run. And then we were supposed to have the youths, but that was called off for various reasons. And I think we've got one event, as long as it goes ahead, depending on tier stuff. We've got an event in Itchenor just before Christmas, which should be fun.
Brixham has come out of the situation very, there's been a lot of people saying a lot of good things about Brixham, which is always nice to hear, and I think the clubs that have made the huge effort, I think people will remember that. I think the Youth Nationals, I was sort of thinking it was almost a good thing that it was just very clearly blown off, and it took the pressure off the decision making. If it had been somewhere in the middle, you'd probably have 50% of people happy and 50% of people unhappy. But when you saw some of the pictures from Portland Harbour, maybe people could relax.
You see, actually, we probably wouldn't have. A lot of the 29ers probably wouldn't have sailed, and I don't think the Lasers would have got out. I'm not sure. I think we maybe would have had one race or not got out at all, because it was 4 days.
Good.
What's your situation now?
So
are you just sort of training as normal, or?
We're training as normal as we can get. So we had our first youth squad 2 weekends ago down in Weymouth. Because it's sort of been the situation over the past few months since the first lockdown's been so variant. So we had a big 4-day camp in Weymouth sort of August time, which was great. And then since sort of September, October, the whole situation worsened again.
Yeah.
So it sort of stopped for a bit, and then we had a little Welsh fire break, about 2 weeks. So we were in pretty strict lockdown then. And
yeah, I mean, a lot of people would say England, you should have done the same thing at the same time, but we're sailors rather than politicians. But the person you sail with is within the same restrictions, though.
Yeah, so Will actually lives probably about 5-minute walk down the road, which is quite handy.
Oh, perfect.
At least then we're in the same
boat. No pun intended.
I was about to say boat, and I thought, I'll stay away from that. Yeah. So when we first came out, we'd leave the boat down in Cardiff, and we'd cycle down every now and again, and because it's in some respect it's been good, because we never used to go sailing at our local club, and now when it was straight after the lockdown period, we were probably getting the most use we've had out of it for a few years. So that was nice in that respect.
Yeah, this is a difficult one to talk about. I think I stitched myself up in the last show saying I was going to talk about the year ahead, and then spend 2 weeks panicking. But my thoughts are that if you're keen to race, you should probably plan to do extra, because perhaps not everything you're intending to do is going to happen. I mean, certainly from what Jamie said, that's been very true in 2020, and I think 2021 could be similar. And just to have a plan B, so if you can't sail down in Weymouth because you can't travel, could you sail at your home club? If you can't sail at your home club, can you go cycling or whatever the situation is, to make the best of that situation. I mean, I know quite a few Olympic athletes who've had major injuries in the Olympic year. So Paul Goodison, 2008, Li Jiaxu, 2012, both broke a bone in the hand, lots and lots of time off sailing, and they won the Olympic gold medal in that year. So it's never nice to have the time off sailing, but you shouldn't feel that it's the end of your season. And certainly in terms of domestic competition, we're all in a fairly similar situation, but I do think there's definitely a mental health side of it to try and look on the bright side, as it were. I mean, if you're doing international stuff, I will book that ferry and that flight early, just in case your first option doesn't happen. But again, I think that's sensational news. And actually, if you read under some of these headlines, the stories quite often just contradict themselves. But there we go. If you work for a foreign country, they're probably quite pleased that the value of the pound is getting closer and closer to the euro. But there we go. We drift off into politics again. Yeah, and I think we're going to be here still as well, covering what's going on. So there you go. So yeah, I mean, that brings very nicely segues to the big handicap racing that does seem to be still happening over the winter. I think it's a really good thing, because I hesitated to use the word, but you still do have a social aspect just to see people, even if it's seeing people from 2 meters away. It's a lot nicer than being stuck in your flat with Netflix.
But also the feedback from the Datchet Flyer was, again, coming back from the online experience, that people really welcome that. So gathering online for a briefing is really good for you. You feel you're joining in, don't you? So
I think there is a social aspect, even if it's definitely different from normal. I think with the handicap racing, you quite often have to approach it a little bit differently and sail your own race. When you're doing class racing, you're very much thinking about the boat-to-boat tactics. And you will, for example, cover another boat, or you will try and stay near a rival, etc., in a series. When you're doing handicap racing, all the different classes behave quite differently. So if you're in a fast boat that loses more tacking, you definitely, want to be trying to go the fastest way around the course, rather than just staying between your opposition and next mark, and vice versa. One of the nice things, I think, it's not only the social aspects, seeing the different classes there, but for people who are looking at changing classes, just to have a look at what else is out there. I remember when I was looking at my Olympic campaigns, I went down to the trials, and I looked at all the different Olympic classes racing, and I went out in the rib, and I thought, that's what I want to spend the next 4-8 years of my life doing. So yeah, I think it's really good to see the different classes of all these events. It may be that some of them would get split single-handed and double-handed, but yeah.
Well, actually, I'm just going to throw something in. I don't know if you saw the video that Tom Morris did. Shall I quickly play that? Because I think that's quite good. Tom is the current RS 800 champion. Obviously, a great one.
Have a career in media, I think.
One design thing, but he's doing some great video. Let me just quickly play that, because he does some great talking about the course and everything. So let's just put that on.
Just safe and right on the shoulder. Okay, you ready for a drive? Okay, let's go. So here we are on board RS 800 1144
for the first race, the 2020 Datchet Flyer. The breeze was about a 15 knot easterly, but getting very patchy towards the top of the course underneath the dam.
Got any kicker on?
9, 7, 3, 2, 1.
Your name?
So a nice start for us there, already up over 8.5 knots. Accelerating away from the fleet here with the fastest boat on the water, so really getting a clear start, getting out into the breeze and letting the boat speed tell was the name of the game for the starts.
Right, so we'll leave that at that point, but that's available
I
on.
just had jealousy that I wish my laser would do nearly 10 knots for 124 beats a minute.
Yeah, and
It doesn't seem very fair.
Yeah, Tom won the speed prize. He was often cracking more than the wind, but it's worth watching that. I mean, Tom's the one design guru, national champion, but he talks about the different tactics in handicap racing. So discussion: do we get the kite up, and blow everyone through, or do we take it conservative? So some slightly different tactics, I think, John, in handicap racing and perhaps on your class championships. So well worth watching that video. I think you can learn a lot. Tom and his crew are top sailors, champions, but they're doing really well at these events. 800 probably hasn't got the best of handicaps, but they're regularly in the top 5, top 10. Right, okay. So moving on, John, I think.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I know not everybody is on Facebook these days, so just to encourage people to get as many people to see the shows as possible to subscribe on YouTube, because generally speaking the show will go out, recording of the show will go out on YouTube within a week of the live show, and it's very easy. If you look in the bottom right hand corner, perhaps I should have circled it in bright red or something, but you can just subscribe to the channel and then you'll get the little alert whenever we've got a show premiering. And I've just started to do little talks, restart sailing chats. So the most recent one was with a British sailing team, FX pair of Hannah and Anna, and we're doing quite a lot with the British sailing team, but also going to be moving on to all sorts of different classes and different clubs, just to see what everyone else has been doing over their lockdown. Yeah,
and if anyone wants to join in, I think they can drop us a line, message us on Facebook. I think
very happy to do that. I think the next one's probably George from Castle Cove, where I sail. So
So it's a mixture of sailors, club officials, classes. Let's share some good experiences and see how we can sort of help each other. So got a contender next, I think.
Yeah, we've tried to mix it up a bit. So we've got sort of some youth classes, some senior, some single-handed, some double-handed, and so. The Christmas show, I guess. do notice the change of date. We're not doing it on Christmas Eve.
Okay.
We will be sticking to the same time.
Good. Okay. Well, I think that's a good show. Thank you.
And thanks very much for coming, Jamie. Really appreciate it.
Very much for having me.
Very, very best of luck in 2021. No doubt, a name to look for in the future.
Good. Okay. Thank you very much. Just signing off then.